Forgiveness is more of a done for yourself rather than for the other person. It's just semantics, you can say. Forgiveness just means the cessation of the disallowance of it. And disallowance is the going against reality because reality has already allowed it. It already happened. That kind of situation exists or existed. So it was already unconditionally allowed. It was already quote unquote forgiven. It was already reality, basically. And so forgiving something or someone is more of a semantics thing and done for yourself rather than for the other person. It's finally letting go of something that you are fighting against or resisting against and saying, this shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been that way. And basically dropping that, dropping that busyness, dropping that, you can say, unfruitful preoccupation, dropping that argument with reality, you know? And so, quote unquote, forgiveness is more like cessation than anything else. It's more like dropping, butting your head against the wall and coming into alignment with reality, and finally dropping the idea of shouldn't be or shouldn't have happened. It's kind of like a toy or a thing. The idea of should not be. If you pick it up, it only causes static. It only causes suffering and fruitless expending of attention and energy. It only causes static noise and suffering, right? And so if you drop that toy, that thing, then you wouldn't get its effect anymore, right? Essentially, that is what you call quote unquote forgiveness. It's more like a dropping the toy, dropping the argument, dropping the butting against reality. Because it's already done, you can say. Reality has already done the forgiving of it because it was already allowed. It was already allowed to be. It's done, There's no forgiving that needed be done because it's already allowed. It was already made to exist. And the need to forgive is because there is the resistance to it. It's because you picked up the toy of shouldn't be, you know. Well, what is more fruitful is to recognize that which is already that which is already in gratitude, that which is already in appreciation, instead of coming from a place of ego doer, right? From lack. I'm not doing it. It's not here. Therefore, I should do it. I should do being grateful. I should do being in appreciation. And that's basically how the ego is. You can say that's its mechanics, that's its nature to yearn for more, for a different circumstance. And so you just notice it. You just recognize that that's how it is. That's how the ego is. It's always looking for more or better or different circumstance that will finally give me joy or fulfillment or satisfaction. Right? It's kind of like an ever worrying mechanism, ever running equation, right? And so it's more of non vilification. non vilification of it. Like, this is wrong and I shouldn't think that, or I shouldn't be that. That is wrong and I have to be in appreciation and be grateful and satisfied with what I have. Right? So you're coming from a place of ego doer that is not meant to be that way. It's not its natural mechanism. What is more helpful is to recognize these two machineries, these two quote unquote runningness. They're both whirring, they're both running, they're both already in operation, in runningness. There's a quote or phrase that says, always being, always becoming. So both of these machineries are running simultaneously. Always being, right? Already whole, full, complete, ever whole, ever quote unquote perfect. And at the same time, there is this layer, you can say, that is in always becoming, always in quote unquote becoming a Buddha, right? So you can say it's like a balance point, you know, one foot here and one foot there. Because as long as you live, there's always going to be, we are, you can say, aiming for goodness. You know, when awakening happens, it's not like we just lay on the ground or on the sofa and not do anything anymore. We still operate and it's geared, it's oriented towards goodness. It's oriented towards, you can say, towards a certain goal. Like, for example, when you're engaged in a project, well, then you're working in that project with the intention of getting to that goal, right? But having one foot at the always being dimension, you can say, there's a more lightness to it. There's more joy in doing it because you're not placing whatever true nature quality on finishing the project or attaining that goal. Meaning, you don't see that after finishing this project and attaining the goal, that's the time. That's where I'll get my happiness. It's the one that holds my fulfillment and satisfaction in life, right? So if you recognize that these two machineries are ongoing, then there's not that confined seeing, You know that completeness and wholeness and happiness and joy is already ever available. And and you are doing the project. And at the same time, you are working on the project with this particular aim. You see, it's still both happening. It's still both occurring. But now you're not putting quote unquote the burden onto the project, onto finishing the project, right? Because as humans, the human experience, we operate, we follow what we're drawn to do. We act according to what we're drawn to do. So circumstance change, You can say that yearning for more or for circumstance to change, it's kind of automatic already. It's like that's the natural tendency already. It's operating in a way that's true for you. And if that led to more or if that led to circumstantial change, then that's that, so be it. That's the already the natural tendency. Even plants and dogs and all living things are oriented towards goodness because that's our nature, right? Our nature is all, our nature is goodness. Like, for example, if you're given a choice, do you want to live in the streets or in a house or in a big house? But of course, you'll choose the big house. right? So geared towards goodness, or you can say better, it's the natural tendency already, you know. But awakening to true nature allows you to not be deluded in thinking that happiness, true happiness or fulfillment or wholeness is confined in that particular circumstance, in that particular thing or object or status or whatever or achievement, right? There's the recognition that those true nature qualities are already here, you know, and it's not confined and gate kept from you by that particular appearance, by that particular circumstance. And so you can say that there is that you, or there is that machinery that's already that's already in gratefulness, that's already in appreciation, that's already in joy. Again, it's like having one foot in the being and one foot in the becoming. And so if there is the recognition of that whirring machinery of this ever available resource, then you'll have a different experience compared to when you're only confined in the ego doer mind that thinks or is deluded in thinking that happiness or fulfillment is contained over there and I should get more. And if I get more, I'll be happy. If I get that, if circumstance change, that's the time. That's the time finally wholeness and completeness and fulfillment is available to me. You see.